Well, being a descendant of the McCall clan, my grandmother was a first cousin of P.J. McCall, and of course I heard a lot about P.J. and especially his father, John. With the parents here and the grandfather, and I grew up with an interest in P.J. and his father, John. John wrote a wonderful history of the locality of Clonmore. It was published in Purton's Almanac in 1861, and it has been a wonderful source of reference for other historians to refer to when they were referring to Clonmore. So, to me, John McCall was a famous historian, patriot, collector of songs and ballads and folklore. He published several and many different compositions of localised history about Clonmore, the wake in Ballyshan, the castle of Clonmore, and several other pamphlets. And they've all been a source of reference for present day historians. Those, unfortunately, there's probably not as much interest in the like of that stuff now as there was years ago, when the neighbours met at firesides, and that was their source of enjoyment, relating localised history and folklore, tales of throat or unthroat, didn't matter. But there was John McCall and his brother Patrick. They were two of a family of 8 in Killalongford, and they left home in 1837, when they were 17 or 18, to work in public houses and shops in Dublin. So they both got on well, and eventually they married 2 sisters, 2 Newports from Ratangan and Wexford. Patrick was an official in Dublin Corporation or County Council, and John bought his own pub in 25 Patrick Street in the 1950s. And it was there, 25 Patrick Street was a real meeting mecca for all the people from Carlow and Wexford that visited Dublin. At that time, the country people, they travelled to Dublin with a horse and cart with their produce of butter and vegetables and corn, and a lot of them only had log wheel carts, and of course they'd be worn out when they'd get as far as Dublin. So they'd sell their produce in the market in Dublin and leave the cart behind them and ride home the horse. Was John McCall's was the mecca for all these people, and it developed into a wonderful house of ballad makers, ballad singers, folklorists, and John and his wife were delighted with the clientele. And When John died in 1902 when he was 80, and PJ carried on the business, the pub and business, but PJ wasn't as much interested in the pub and the business as he was in his own writings and compositions. So the first cousin of PJ's ran the pub for a good many years. So PJ was free then to compose ballads and songs, which he did in hundreds, and around 400 ballads and poems. They amounted to, I think, 5 volumes, and they'd be priceless. I've only got one of them, but I believe all these collections are in some of the museums or libraries or in Dublin. But he became more famous than his father, even on account of composing all these songs and poems, like buíoch, Kelly from Chulainn, the Lowlands Low, Follow Me Up to Carlow, the Hill of Campile, all these and hundreds more. But each one was a chapter of history in its own right, except for PJ composing buíoch and Kelly from Chulainn. Back in my young days, no one has known a hippert about 1798, except for ballads, PJ's ballads, because like that localised history wasn't referred to in schools and by a lot of the natives even at that time either. In fact, those patriotic songs and ballads weren't allowed to be broadcast or published up to the 70s, I'd say now. And so the legend that PJ and John left behind them is priceless, and as time goes on it'll become more priceless, because somebody will realise the important work that they did do and the time they spent and the research they did. So it's wonderful to for my part anyhow, to have an interest in local history, and you always have the reference, you can always reference back to John McCall's writings and PJ's ballads for your information, which will always be there. So I relished the thought as the privilege of being a descendant from the McCalls. My grandmother was a McCall, so I always had an interest in the McCall heritage.